Welcome to the Find Your Edge podcast. I'm your host, Chris Newport, founder, head coach, sports nutritionist, and exercise physiologist at the Endurance Edge. Our mission is to empower people to reach and sustain peak performance and health. So get ready to dive into all things training, nutrition, recovery, and more. We hope to give you detailed information and inspiring stories to help you be your best. Let's do it. All right, welcome back, y'all, to the Find Your Edge podcast. I am with our other dietitian, Marissa, and today we're talking all about nutrition during the winter. Could be winter sports, or maybe you're going for a run and it's real cold outside, or, there's any number of things, but all the same rules apply. And then we have a couple of little different things to consider. So that's what we're here to talk about. So what up, Marissa?
It's nasty up here in Kentucky, but it's cold, and the cold changes your eating habits. It changes your mood. It changes your desire to drink cold liquids, right? So I feel like we all need to take a moment and ask yourself, maybe reflect on it right now. It's probably cold if you're anywhere above like Georgia or above Texas, maybe. Texas is like 50 degrees. That's cold. But
Or
ask
maybe
yourself,
just the Caribbean. How about that?
why not? Ask yourself if you're living in the cold, if you feel like your dietary habits, hydration change, definitely around exercise. Ask yourself that. Take a minute, reflect, pause, think about it, write it down, come back to us. If you're back, the answer is probably yes, it does change. And I think it's really important to remember that it's still important to drink, and it's still important to fuel your body correctly during the cold, because I don't know about you guys, but the last thing I want after a post-workout is a cold smoothie, which is normally what I drink after a post-workout when it's hot out, right? So like, I don't want something freezing after a cold run. So what are some things that we can eat after? What are some things that we can hold on to us that's going to stay warm and not freeze while we're running outside? Or what are some things to consider? So let's just open the floor, Chris, and let's see what's up.
I love it. I love it. So I think that it helps us to back up a little bit and make sure that in order for your nutrition to be right, you have to make sure that you are dressed for your sport appropriately. Now, there might be some, like if you're on the ice and you're a hockey player, your gear ain't gonna change. But like if you're running and it's 25 degrees out and icy, your gear is going to be different than when it's 80 degrees out. So there are some good resources, and I know, for example, we have a lot of runners. There are some good resources for runners, at least that I know, where you can type in like, this is the wind chill, the sun is rising.
Yes.
This is the pace I'm going to be doing. And do you like to run hot or cold or neutral? And it will give you some suggestions as to what gear to use, because if you get too hot, so you're sweating too much, and then you need to take something off and everything is wet, then you start to get cold. And then you have to put everything back on. And now you might be shivering, which is an energetically expensive process and needs additional calories. So that being said, make sure you are layered properly.
Yes. Have more layers, because you can take them off, but it's like you want thin layers and like smart layers, if that makes sense. Like having smart wool socks. Like I have like those like athletic smart wool socks that are thin enough to like not have my feet sweat, but thick enough to like be good to keep them warm, because my toes, oh my God, if it's even cold in my house, they start getting freezing or numb. And I'm like, I have some issues. I don't know. Maybe I need to go to a doctor. But the worst feeling is when your feet are cold.
And that's really important. Like if somebody has Raynaud's,
Yeah.
they need to make sure that their extremities
Oh my
continue
God.
to have circulation. That's super important.
That's the first thing on me that goes, are my hands and my feet. Like if my hands and my feet are freezing, like I just
And
am
it's
gonna
game over.
curl up.
Yeah.
No, I can't do anything. Like they need to be warm. So even getting like those like hot hands or whatever, like you can put in like gloves and have those in there.
I just discovered that, okay, so hot hands, we'll make sure to we'll link those. But
Yes.
I just discovered that there is a hot hands like device.
Oh.
Like you like plug it in and it is warm.
Oh,
and
you
then
know what?
you
I think I've seen
recharge
that.
it. Did you know this is a thing?
I think I saw when I went, so I went to the Kentucky Louisville game up here and it was literally 25 degrees. So if my fiance never thinks I support him, he knows now. And I saw a bunch of people
It's
with those
public
things and I was like,
information.
how don't I have these things? Like my Florida butt is living in Kentucky and it's 25 degrees and I don't have the best attire. Like I'm doing myself a disservice.
Oh, total. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's and I know it in my brain. I'm always like when it starts to get colder, I'm like, oh, I just need some tights. It'll be fine. And then I get out there, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, ding dong. Like, did you not
Mhm.
remember that you have to have the layers and that your butt always my butt
Yeah.
gets cold. And like, yes, my hands and feet less when I'm running. My feet probably won't get super cold until it's like into the single digits, which is
Oh,
weird to say for me, but
yeah. Gross.
yeah. And then but on the bike, if my toes get cold,
Oh.
you will encounter a very not nice Chris. So
I was also gonna say like I'm not a cyclist by any means. I'm actually terrible riding a bike. But if it's cold out and running, you're not going fast enough to get like the wind. But like I can't
Mhm.
imagine being a cyclist and going like 20 miles per hour and like feeling the wind in your face.
Yes,
Like please make
convection
sure.
is a big deal.
Oh my goodness. And that's
Yeah.
one of the points that we wanted to make sure is like of course like hydration and fueling your body is super important regardless. But imagine trying to eat with a windburn on your lips. Like it's
Yeah.
gonna hurt. So protect your lips, protect your face, because at the end of the day,
And
if you can't
sunscreen.
eat,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
in pain. That's gonna hurt.
Yes, it will. Yeah. So dress properly, make sure you're layered properly. You
Yes.
might have to do something like hot hands or either the digital version or I guess the sort of
Mhm.
electronic version
Mhm.
or those little good old fashioned hot hands. I am allergic to wool, sadly. I wish I could have everything in Smart Wool's uh,
Yes, they're the
repertoire, but
best.
I am allergic to wool, which is real sad. I have had good success with CEP products,
Okay, good to know.
and they have ski socks
Oh,
and they have like running socks. So I that's typically what I wear in the wintertime is not the calf sleeves, but like the full socks, and
yeah,
my feet stay nice and toasty.
good.
Um,
Very good to know.
so yeah, and then we got our lips and our sunscreen and our
Yes.
faces, sunscreen, etc. And then dressing properly. Um, hydration, like
Mm,
you can't forget it. It's
yes.
but
Don't.
just remember that you're not, and we have a sweat log for this, right? To remind
Yep.
yourself that you are not sweating the same quantity because your
Hmm.
body, your core temperature is still rising,
Hmm.
but because it's the outdoor temperature is not as hot and you don't have to physically cool yourself by
Hmm.
sweat, you're still sweating.
Yep. Breathing heavy,
Hmm.
all that good stuff. That still requires perspiration, or that's how you lose fluid in your body is from breathing, from going to the bathroom. Like you're still losing fluids while exercising. And I think it's so important that, let's be honest, most of our clients, Chris, kind of suck at hydrating. And they
We love
and
all of
then
you,
and then
but
yeah,
she's
we
not
love
wrong.
you. We love you, but you're not the best. But then you put on, 20-degree weather and you're not hot and you don't feel like drinking, one, because you're not sweating. Two, you don't feel like taking 17 layers off to go to the bathroom. I still think it's so important to maintain that habit because you're going to do that during the wintertime. And then because you're so used to doing that in the wintertime and it gets hot, you then have to relearn how to hydrate properly. And like, why
Yes.
do yourself a disservice by losing that habit during the wintertime? Like, your body's still losing fluid. Yes, you're not losing as much. So of course, like maybe if you normally lose or need 20 ounces per hour, maybe you need 15 during the winter, but
Hmm.
you still need to be active in being on top of your hydration. There are also hot ways to get in your hydration. So drinking chicken broth, drinking
Oh, it
hot
was like, ooh,
chocolate.
hot topic.
Yeah,
Hot
no
off
pun
the presses.
intended, hot topic. But yeah, chicken broth, hot cocoa. Like
Yes.
when
Or
I used to
vegetable
work at,
broth if you're
yeah,
if you're a vegan.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, forgot about those people. Uh-huh.
Sure. Hmm.
But when I was with FSU, like, and again, I'm working with a bunch of Florida boys on the football team. When we go to Boston College or Syracuse, in an October, November game, it's freaking cold for us. So I made sure we got chicken broth on the side or vegetarian veggie broth,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or hot cocoa. And I made sure to get those things for them because the 18-year-old boys are not going to drink if they're cold. That's just how it is. So just making sure you set yourself up for success. Like have those things available. Obviously, if you're out on a, 15-mile run, it's really hard to have like chicken broth on you and stay hot. But understanding that you can hydrate before and after with hot things to kind of maintain your core temperature and not get too shivery or too cold too.
Yeah. And being careful with things like coffee,
Ooh.
or like heavily caffeinated drinks, just because it could, um, you kind of, everybody's got to practice, right? So like, I'm always going to have my cup of coffee before I exercise, whether it's
Hmm.
8,000 degrees out. Well, okay, exaggeration, shocker with me. Either, it's super hot out or it's super cold out. I'm always going to drink my cup of coffee.
Yep.
But for some people that can, it can be a diuretic. And then if you're having your cup of coffee or multiple cups of coffee, and then you're not drinking anything on that 15-mile run or
Yeah.
whatever mile, how many ever miles you're cycling, and then now we're in trouble
Hmm.
because you haven't hydrated consistently during
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you're too cold, and then all you've had is a cup of coffee, and yeah, you're going to be dehydrated.
Yeah.
That's
And then like the chicken broth or the veggie broth, they're going to be high in electrolytes. So that's going to be
Mhm.
another positive thing. Not only are they warm, but they're going to provide you that electrolytes to help retain that water and keep that water in so you can stay hydrated. So I think going into the winter, going into the cold, like maybe just make a couple things, like a list of like, hey, what are some things that I need to think more about during this time?
Mhm.
Like you said, clothing, chapstick, sunscreen, all that good
Like a
stuff.
little
But think of
checklist before you head
yeah, a
out
little
the door.
checklist. Yep. What can I do to hydrate? Like, let's just say, hey, I know that I generally subconsciously just kind of drink less when it's cold. How can I stay on top of my hydration? Like, ask yourself these questions. That's why I said in the beginning, reflect on how you act and how you eat during this time. And then once you notice like your little, let's call them flaws during the winter time, as far as fueling and hydrating, really just make it a priority to work on those things. And not only think about the hot fluids or the hydration during, but think about what you normally eat during your long cycles or long runs. Like, are they going to freeze? Like, how are you going to make sure that
Or are they
they
not going to be good if they're cold?
yeah, come on. Like just ask yourself these questions. Like if you're so used to having, let's call it like you said, like chocolate goose, and then all of a sudden
Yes. Oh, I had
it's
a chocolate
frozen
goo
and breaks
once.
your teeth.
Yes, it was like trying to squeeze hard chocolate out of like, literally was like I'm like squeezing the chocolate goo, and it's like coming out ever so slowly, and it's like literally like standing straight up, straight up in the air. Here it is. I'm like, I don't know if I
Not really
want that.
appetizing.
Anyway,
Mhm.
it does sound really, I mean, I make it
Gross.
sound wonderful. But
Yeah.
to your point is, certain things are not like we were talking about before coming on, like, would you have an RX bar
Oh
cold?
God.
Like you gonna
They're
lose
already
teeth.
hard to chew, and then you make
Yes.
them cold.
Yeah, you are gonna lose those fillings. And
Lose all
that
your
is,
teeth.
let's not go to the dentist,
And
friends.
you don't want to waste your energy chewing either. Like that's
Yes.
some
Or
work.
or yeah, it gets stuck in all the wrong places.
Or choke. I
Um,
mean,
Yeah, but
it's for
honey
your
won't
safety.
freeze. Honey won't freeze. So like
There
Honey
you go.
Stinger has their gels.
Mm.
And then we were brainstorming beforehand, like, things I always think of fueling opportunities in terms of like things that can easily go in a pocket or
Your
something else
sports bra?
convenient. Yeah, or shove it in a sports bra. Um, I always think of like I walk into the um gas station and what am I going to grab? And it could be those little mini beef jerky sticks or bags of Cheez-Its. And we have no connection to any of these products, but
No, I
like
wish.
you got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
If you need to be gluten-free, like gluten-free crackers,
Yeah.
because generally speaking, they're going to be salty and have
Hmm.
carbs.
Yep.
And
And if they're
that's what
salty,
we're
that's
looking for.
gonna definitely also make you want to drink. So
Yeah.
that's another thing is like having saltier things when it's cold, because the salt is gonna kind of dry your mouth out and make you want to drink water. So like again, when we used to travel with football, I would give them like popcorn, pretzels, a bunch of salty things on the plane just to get them to freaking drink.
Yes. Yeah. No,
So
that's
that's
clever.
another way to think about it too, is having saltier things to kind of help
Stimulate your thirst.
reinforce, yeah,
Hmm.
reinforce the hydrating if you do struggle with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, honey doesn't freeze, so definitely switch over to anything like, or even just doing like packs of honey and just shoot a tablespoon of honey, like
Oh
that
yeah.
works too.
Yeah, you can grab those at probably I know I've
Starbucks.
seen those before. Yeah.
Probably like Starbucks or like some sort of
Oh
buffet or
yeah,
something.
yeah, maybe so.
Mm,
And then considering like if you're wearing a some sort of a hydration pack,
mm,
they do make insulated for like the hose that comes down.
mm.
So if the water freezes, and same thing in the summertime, I hate taking that first sip
Oh
from the
yeah.
hose of like hot water until it
Yeah.
gets to the cold stuff. Like, ugh.
Ugh.
But that anything in that hose can get cold or hot depending on the season. They
Yeah.
do make like a sleeve, like a neoprene sleeve that you can put on
Oh,
it. So it keeps your water from freezing or from
good to
getting
know.
too hot.
Yeah,
Or they also make insulated bottles.
true.
So if you're putting something on the bike and you don't want it to freeze,
Hmm.
if it does have a little bit of salt in it, the freezing point is lower, thus why they put salt on the roads to avoid it from.
Isn't that crazy? Just put salt in your body. It's the same thing.
How about them
You are
apples?
the road.
Yes, and don't like per bottle per like 22-ish ounce bottle, it's really not that much.
Hmm.
Um, it just takes a little bit and then like a little squeeze of lemon juice and then you got your crackers and so now you
Oh,
got
you're ready to
electrolytes,
go.
fluid, carbs, check, check, check. And then when you come
Yes.
home, you got your hot chocolate or I
Yeah.
used to always do a like a mocha,
Oh, very nice.
So then you
Yeah.
just got a little extra
Well, speaking about after
coffee.
your run, so post workout, like I said, the last thing I want is a cold smoothie with my protein powder. So, what are some things that you can make sure that you want to have after that's not going to be freezing? So, like you could do soups, so like making like
Mhm.
crock pot soups, or you can make casseroles or something. Obviously, heating up food and eating is normal, but for me, I have a hard time like wanting to eat a meal directly after exercise. So, I
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
like some sort of fluid or some sort of smoothie. So, definitely like some sort of a soup would be a good option for you
Mhm.
to also get your electrolytes, but also you can do a chicken noodle soup,
You
whatever
don't
you're,
necessarily want to choose the lower sodium unless you have
yeah.
been instructed by a
Mm,
prescribing physician
yes.
with some sort of medication or whatnot that
Oh yeah,
you
get your
need to.
salt, girl.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I know I'm a big fan of like chicken noodle soup,
Yes.
or
Mhm.
I love me a grilled cheese and some tomato
Oh,
soup.
stop it. I want grilled cheese right now.
Right. So, but to your point, like immediately afterwards, I'm probably gonna want like some tea maybe or just broth.
Yeah. Oh
Just sip
yeah.
on it lightly until I get home. And by that time, all of your blood flow has now exited working muscles, and you're probably going to start to get cold unless
Yes.
you have dressed
Isn't that
appropriately.
crazy? Like it's funny. Like I'll get once you stop obviously moving and you're sweaty, you get cold. But also
Mhm.
like when I stop moving when it's hot out, like normally like this is just me personally, when I work out, like I don't sweat that much, but the second I stop, it just like comes out
Oh,
of
yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how our bodies work.
Yes, totally. Um, so I think we got our hydration, we got our fueling, we got our hot things.
Yeah.
Oh, and we do have a recovery hot chocolate recipe on our website, so I'll be
Oh,
sure to link to that. And I
yes.
know certain companies make like products like, and again, we don't have any connection to any of these products. Although I will say any of our athletes do get $20 to the feed every quarter, which is kind of
Oh,
cool.
very nice.
But Element has a hot
Yeah, like a
version.
hotline,
Hmm.
like
Yeah,
mint
which is an
chocolate,
electrolyte drink.
cocoa.
It doesn't have calories in it. And
Hmm.
then Scratch, I believe, Skratch has a hot cocoa recovery drink. It's not cheap, but Cheater's version, if you want the cheap version, you can get whatever you want off of the store shelf,
Oh,
little packets,
there you
and then just add just a little bit of salt to it. That's all you
go.
need to add. Just a little
Hmm.
bit of your electrolytes.
Salt Bay.
Mm-hmm. So, and that just, perks you right up.
Yeah, I
Um,
think another thing that a lot of people need to realize, which again, if you are not from the north like me and you go to a place that is very cold, I'm going to be shivering a lot.
mhm,
And shivering equals burning calories, equals
mhm.
expending energy. So be mindful if you're in a very cold place and you're not really adapted to the cold and you're shivering, pretty consistently, like you are going to be burning more calories. So just be conscious of making sure you're eating enough, honestly. Like maybe if you're from the North Pole, like you have all the brown adipose tissue and like you don't feel anything. But like I swear, when you're born on the beach in Florida and you
Yeah.
move somewhere cold, it hurts. Like the other night, I literally couldn't fall asleep because I was too cold. I mean, I had socks on. Yeah, I wore socks to bed, pants, jacket, long sleeve. Like, come at me, I don't care. But I wore all these things to bed, and I could like it just like it hurt so much. I was so cold.
Yes, yes. It is not fun to be
No.
cold
Yeah.
like
So
that.
just be
Like,
mindful that if you are shivering a lot, to make sure you eat a little extra that day, or just get in a little bit more
and then like
food into
big
you.
picture too. Like you're probably so if you did your exercise and then you get too cold and then you start shivering and now you've got like your broth and you're curled up on the couch and you're like covered in all the blankets, you're probably not going to move a whole lot from there. So we want to make sure you're fueling
Yes.
properly in that time frame, but then consider like, am I still going to go to my normal daily activities that I would do
Hmm.
otherwise? Or am I just going to sit here
Hmm.
and be still? So that doesn't mean like, I'm just going to eat a giant pizza to make up for all the shivering. Like, well, when you stop shivering,
I don't
so
think it's like
let's
that.
just
Yeah.
call it balance because I don't want people to feel badly if they're eating more
Sure.
food to fuel, especially
Pizza
because
is
you have post.
salty, so whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You are 3 times more likely to store consumed carbohydrates in the post-workout period as glycogen than you are at any other time. So
Hmm.
like, yes,
Get it
store
in.
that glycogen is what
Yeah.
I'm
I always
saying.
say 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein. So get
Yeah.
your carbohydrates to
Yeah.
help that replenish and then protein to refuel and repair and recondition those muscles.
Yeah. And
Another
still
thing
consider your
that
recovery, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You should always consider it. Never change your habits despite the season. That is the takeaway from today.
Hmm.
Another thing that again, this is someone who doesn't deal with the cold very well to notice is like when it's cold out, like my joints hurt, my body hurts.
Yeah.
Recovery is so much more important for me in the wintertime because like my body just hurts more. And like getting blood flow to my working muscles. Like if you already have issues with, your ability to kind of get blood to your extremities, like consider maybe supplementation with like beet powder to kind of help with
Oh
that
yeah.
blood flow and open the vessels up or different things like that. But again, I'm talking about myself. I'm preaching to myself right now, but if you're someone who
Little
struggles with
reminders.
this, yes, if you struggle with this, definitely again, stay on top of your recovery, your stretching and making sure that you're hydrating because again, that's lubrication for your joints. So think about being cold, not hydrating as much. Cold already hurts your joints and you're not hydrating enough. Your joints are definitely not happy. So just
Yeah.
stay on top of that and make sure
Yeah.
you're doing what you need
And
to
then
do.
you might be like tensing your
Yes.
shoulders. I know you can't see me right now, but I'm tensing my shoulders. And then be like, man, why do I have this terrible headache? Because I'm trying to like literally close myself off to get warm and then everything just gets
Yes.
tense and then you get the headache. So like,
Oh my God. Well, this is just a side note. I've been dealing with like really bad TMJ recently in my jaw, and I notice in the wintertime because I clench like subconsciously and I don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out when I do it. And if I'm outside and it's cold, like I completely lock up. And I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, how do I stop clenching when it's cold? Because it hurts my jaw. So definitely I'm definitely the person that is doing the shoulder raise and the
Yep.
clenching and like just like
Yeah.
basically I'm just like frozen.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me of like, I tend to curl my toes when I ski.
Mhm. Mm.
Like partly of like gripping my boots, but partly like my toes are cold.
Yeah.
And so then what else is clenching? Like
Oh my
your
God, yeah.
jaw, your shoulders, your hands, your feet. I mean, things that are just a little different than they would be
Yes.
in normal or warmer conditions.
Yeah.
So, awareness is what I heard you say there. Just being
Be aware
aware.
of it. Check your yeah, because I notice like when I'm driving, I clench. When it's cold, I clench. I'm like, so okay, I notice all these things when I drive. I have to be more mindful of that. But that is a complete side note in case anyone was wondering
No,
how
I
my
mean, but
EMJ is going.
yeah, but I mean, it's like it's nutritionally related,
True.
right?
Oh yeah,
But
like
then,
I'm on a
Mhm.
mechanically softened diet right now. It hurts to
Oh
chew.
man,
It's fun.
haven't thought about that since clinical,
I
but
know,
yeah,
I know. I was like, I know how to do this diet. I'm good.
So yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Um, yeah, I had a friend of mine who got in a really bad bike
Ooh,
accident and had to have his jaw wired shut because he
oh my
screwed
God.
up his teeth so much. And so yeah, he was blending his pork chops and his mashed
Ugh.
potatoes and
No, no. I mean, lunch today for me is tuna and some mashed sweet potatoes. So,
yeah, goodness.
yep.
Yeah, for this blog, I'll put together just kind of like reminders of some of the things that we talked about that,
Mhm.
like the chicken broth, the hot chocolate recipes.
Yeah, definitely some
I'll find some other
recipes.
stuff that's, easy to carry with you, but
Yeah,
won't freeze as easily and, trying to give you some good resources as you're out
yeah.
there. Because, you don't want to stop getting at it.
Exactly. I mean,
Keep
listen,
getting it.
I bought myself a treadmill because I said I am not running in this cold. So you
There
could
you
also
go.
be like me and buy a
Uh-huh.
treadmill.
And you could decorate the floor of your own house with your own
Yes.
sweat. So,
There
and
you go.
that is fine too.
I think the biggest takeaway, at least if I had, I'll say my biggest takeaway, and you can say your biggest takeaway. I think the biggest thing is to maintain your habits despite the season and to
Mhm.
make sure you reflect on noticing if you fall back on any of your already good foundational habits. Like that's the biggest thing. Like I know I'm not as good as hydrating when it's cold. I know that I shiver a lot. Like all those things, like notice that and then just prepare and plan.
Mhm.
That's probably the biggest takeaway for me. What about you?
Yeah, I know. I think that's great. Consistency in hydrating.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like, if you're usually taking 4 chugs because you're a heavy sweater, like maybe it's just 1 chug, but you're still drinking every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever
Yep.
your, watch beeps at the mile marker or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, sometimes I tend to, at least for me, like those things that won't freeze. I tend
Mhm.
to, because I'm like, oh, well, my hands are in gloves now, and then I have to like reach back into my pocket, and then I have to like, rip off the thing with my teeth or whatever. So thinking ahead, to your point, planning so that you can reach for those things that are easy to fuel with that won't break your teeth.
Oh my God,
Um,
yeah.
and that are also still tasty and being consistent about taking those things. And then, I just get so excited about having my recovery mocha or hot chocolate or,
Yeah, bring like a
so
thermos or something with you in the car so then when you get back, you have something to look forward to.
thermos. I love it.
A little
I thought
thermos.
about thermos and, get some cool gear, man. Like this is
Yeah.
always like such a great excuse to be like, ooh, well, buy me a pair of those
Hey,
CT
question,
socks.
because I got a question for you. Do your shoes change when it's cold? Like think about like if it's snowing, like do you have to wear like spiky shoes? Like what do you
Yeah,
do?
so yeah, if you're on icy conditions as a runner or a hiker, you may want to get spikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that and there's a couple of different kinds. There's some that are kind of big and there's some that are kind of like small. So it depends on the terrain you're going on. Like I said, my feet tend to stay really hot, so I usually
Mhm.
don't change my shoes, but so I mean to your point, some shoes have a lot of mesh
Yeah, I get
and
watery. Oh,
yep. So there might be some gear changes involved. I know for
yeah.
me, the big thing for me in the cold is windproof stuff.
Yes. Oh my
So
God.
like
That's the
either
thing.
a
It could be
vest.
30. It could be 30 with
Mhm.
no wind and it's fine. But if it's 30 and windy, I'm dead.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah. So
gone.
like a vest like for cycling or like a full I had this great jacket for running that has like little hand mittens that come
Yeah, yeah.
out and then you can kind of keep your hands balled up. Usually when your hands are balled up, then they'll start to sweat and then it's you can kind of titrate
Yeah.
a little bit, take a little off, then put it back on.
Oh, very
And it's
good.
all windproof. Oh, I love that thing. And then my ears, those have got to stay
Yeah.
warm.
I
Skiing, I've
said
got my helmet
we'll
on, so
try
that's
and link a bunch of things for you
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
That
all the
way,
fun gear.
yeah.
And then like where do you put your snacks?
Yeah.
You gotta have your snacks.
Keep it on your
So, and
body so it stays warm.
always chapstick. I'm obsessed. Yeah, having chapped lips is no bueno.
Oh, it's not fun. It's like a paper cut. Like they're so unnecessarily like not fun to have. They're
Yes.
so like stupid, but they hurt so much.
Yes, agreed. And then and then you're like, oh, I really want to have some salsa right now later on.
Oh
And then you're
God,
like, nope,
no.
that's a hard pass.
Your
Yeah.
lips are
So,
burning.
all right. So, like Marissa and I said, be consistent with your hydration, consider things that are going to be a little bit different and out of your norm. So make
Hmm.
sure you're still getting your carbs, your protein post workout, your hydration, your electrolytes,
Everything. Yeah.
and having fun out there, crushing it.
Yeah. Make some snowmen, do what you gotta do.
If it snows there, Marissa, you're going to have to send us a picture of you making a snow angel.
I would love that. It hasn't snowed enough to do that yet. But it has snowed, and when I tell you, I freak out like a kid who's never seen it before because
Heck
it's
yeah.
very new to
Love
me
that.
still. And I'm like, oh my God, it's snowing. I'll text Jeff and be like, oh my God, it's
Yes, and we'll have to post that.
snowing.
Cool. All
Cool.
right, y'all. Hopefully you found this helpful and head over to our website, theenduranceedge.com, and under podcast, you can find any of our resources that we post there. And y'all keep on getting it. Thanks, Marissa.
Of course. Get after it, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Find Your Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you're interested in learning more about our endurance coaching, sports and wellness nutrition, metabolic and sweat testing, triathlon training team, or our triathlon training library, be sure to check us out at theenduranceedge.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media at The Endurance Edge. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.